Hey, JK here. I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the football season has come and gone, at least the regular season. Luckily, we do still have playoff football coming up this weekend. I'm very excited, even though my Washington Red Potatoes are nowhere close to sniffing the opportunity to play in the playoffs anytime soon. Hopefully, this upcoming draft will allow us to pick up a player, please God, not Drake May or Caleb Williams, that will help us get closer to getting to the playoffs. We only had one team to talk about this week, and unfortunately it was not for a championship. But after we talk about that team, we will talk about the highest scores at each position. This may be standard and or PPR. I'll let you know which one it is. And some of the numbers might surprise you. But in any case, we'll go over quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and also kicker. And again, I will try to add a little bit more to this so it's not super short, but I also will talk to you about my favorite players I drafted, not necessarily on every team, but of the 4 teams, which player I had the most of, or players I had the most of. Again, that might surprise you as well, but let's go ahead and get into the Deranged Easterbunny. I was playing against my fraternity brother, and we were going for 3rd place. Now, this is not the sexiest of matchups to try to win 3rd place, but it added another week to my fantasy hopes and dreams and playing, and just gave me something to watch the games for, other than just entertainment. I won 233 to 140. Fun fact, I was also the highest scorer in the league for that week. Therefore, I would have won the championship. So I'm going to go UCF and say I'm the actual champion of this league. I also scored the 3rd most points in the league. So that makes sense as to why I would finish 3rd. My highest scores included Jordan Love with 66. And then James Conner coming out of nowhere with 36. And then Breece Hall with 35. The lowest score I had on my team was Trey McBride, who got 13. That was excluding kicker, defense, and independent defensive player. So, yeah, I'll take 13 points from my lowest scoring person any day, all day. Also, there was one ad. Yes, in a 3rd place game, there was an ad. I added Jordan Love and dropped Matthew Stafford. So that concludes the updates for all of my teams this year. That's crazy. The year has flown by. Overall, I did have 3 3rd place finishes and 1 last place finish. But you know what? Had a ton of injuries, and you could say, oh, well, those are just excuses because you could have searched the waiver wire. You could have drafted better. One, I don't think anyone can see injuries unless you draft Keenan Allen. Also, it's one of those things where when you lose your top running back, your top receiver, you lose a quarterback a little ways through the season, a tight end goes down. That's tough, man. You lose some of your star players. That's hard to come back from. But in any case, it's all in good fun, and that's what I did have. I had fun. Something else I wanted to talk about, the player on my teams, or players on my teams that I liked having the most. And I will absolutely say one of the guys that I jumped for in a few of my drafts was Jahmyr Gibbs. He was a 1st-round pick for the Lions out of mighty Alabama. I don't care what anyone says. Boo, Michigan. But he had 945 yards this year and 10 touchdowns. And, he added some receptions as well. 52 for 316 yards. Those are great numbers for a rookie who is actually behind David Montgomery, who vultured several touchdowns away from him on the goal line. But holy cow, a rookie playing behind a person who, I'm not going to say established, but he's considered a vet. I mean, he had his time in Chicago. It wasn't sexy. Came over to Detroit. Looks a whole heck of a lot better. But in any case, he was behind him and still had all those yards, all those touchdowns, and obviously was a receiving threat. So I will absolutely take Jahmyr Gibbs if I'm able to next year. Another player I really enjoyed having on my team and unfortunately would disappear from week to week, maybe for weeks at a time, was Drake London, 2nd-year wide receiver in Atlanta. That whole franchise is crazy. It's in disarray right now. They just fired their head coach. There's a lot of things going on. Rotation at quarterback, confusion with the coach. Tyler Algier did all sorts of crazy things to begin the season and then went, deaf until literally the last week of the season. Bijan Robinson was supposed to be the star. He disappeared. I'm a Texas fan, so I'm all for Bijan Robinson. But they didn't utilize him like they should have, in my opinion. I think something else to keep in mind. They have amazing tight ends. And you utilize Jonnu Smith for like 2 or 3 weeks, and he's going off, and you're actually doing well, and then I don't want to throw it to him anymore. You have a freakishly athletic Kyle Pitts, and you're pissing that excellence away. So Drake London was my boy. I hated seeing him on my bench, not being able to produce because of the disarray that franchise was in. That offense was in. My God. But in any case, I liked having him on my team. He had 69 receptions. Nice. For 905 yards. He did only have 2 touchdowns last year. He had 4 touchdowns, so he did drop a little bit. But again, I think that was because he would go unused, and I don't know if any wide receiver in that offense was used very well like they should have been. But in any case, Jahmyr Gibbs, Drake London, 2 of my favorite guys. I will probably, depending on the quarterback situation in Atlanta, try to get them again next year. But, who knows? Other people might have the same draft thoughts that I do and foresee good stuff. But let's get into the highest scores for each position. Now, I'm not going to say the actual number that they had because it varies, obviously. Some of my leagues have extra points if the quarterback throws a 50-plus yard pass, or if they have a 500-yard game, whatever it may be. But just overall consensus, who the top player of that position was. Number 1, we're going to start with the quarterback, Josh Allen. Overall, he did have a 66.5 completion rate, and he threw for over 4,300 yards. He had 29 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. He also added over 500 yards on the ground and added a whopping 15 touchdowns. Good Lord. And next we're going to talk about the running back position, where Christian McCaffrey led all running backs, surprise, surprise, on that 49ers team with that amazing line and pretty good play calling. McCaffrey had over 1,400 yards on the ground with 14 touchdowns, only 2 fumbles. He also added another 60-plus receptions for 7 touchdowns and only lost 1 fumble there. So you're looking at 300, almost 400 touches and 3 fumbles. I think that goes to show how dynamic of a player he was, obviously, in Carolina when there was nobody else helping him. And then where he is now, where he has a plethora of help surrounding him, and he's still putting up these amazing numbers. So again, I missed out on arguably one of the most explosive players in the league. So I don't know if you want to take fantasy advice from me. And now we're going to move to wide receiver, where I absolutely know who everyone is thinking, and it was not CeeDee Lamb. However impressive his 136 receptions for 1,749 yards, 12 touchdowns with another few on the ground were very impressive. According to different sites, Tyreek Hill was actually the number 1 wide receiver. He had 119 receptions for 1,799 yards and 13 touchdowns. It was really up for grabs for either one of these guys. They're both explosive, so I think maybe the scoring came down to the longer touchdowns. Tyreek did have 1 more receiving touchdown. However, CeeDee had a few rushing touchdowns. And then, of course, Tyreek had 50 more yards. I don't know if that really was the difference maker, but maybe it was. But in any case, you couldn't have gone wrong having either one on your team. Getting closer to the end, we're going to talk about the tight end now. And I think that everyone's thoughts were going to be with Sam Laporta being the number 1 tight end. He set the rookie record for most receptions with 86. Fell very, very short with just under 900 reception yards and did have 10 touchdowns, so that's great. In PPR, though, TJ Hawkinson was the number 1 tight end. He had 95 receptions for 960 yards. He only had 5 touchdowns. So that's probably where the discrepancy came in with scoring, and why he didn't lead in standard, because he did only have so few touchdowns. But yeah, that's crazy to think that he got hurt with a few games left in the season, and he was playing without Kirk Cousins for the second half of the season. So TJ Hawkinson, as much as people in Detroit maybe hated seeing him leave, I don't think they are upset with having Sam Laporta in there now, and are glad to see Hawkinson doing well, as long as it doesn't come at their expense. And to wrap it up, we're going to talk about the top kicker in the league, who was Dallas Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey. He was 36 for 38, 10 from 10 from 50 plus, which is crazy, and also was 49 for 52 when it came to extra points. Still don't understand how kickers miss extra points, but I guess that's why they moved it back another 10, 15 yards, and how the Saints still can't forgive John Carney. Well, that wraps the season up, guys. Talked about the final team that was in contention, only getting third place. Unfortunately, not a championship. Unable to bring a championship to this channel in football and baseball this year. I was so close in baseball, but, close with no cigar. We will look forward to bringing one home in one of those sports next year. Also talk to you about the top scorers at each position. Some of them are a little surprising. Some of them are very, very close. And also talk to you about the players I enjoyed most having on my team. So if you're in a league with me next year, do not draft them, because I want to draft them. They're my guys now. But in any case, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you and ramble for these last 18 weeks. As you allowed me to talk and ramble for all those weeks in baseball, I'm looking forward to baseball season coming up. We have drafts to get ready for, and I'm excited to talk to you about that. If you still need your fix for sports, I encourage you to watch my weekly upload for the NCAA Revamp Dynasty I have going on with the Charlotte 49ers. I do have roots in North Carolina, so I like to see the smaller teams like UNC Charlotte go up against some of the big dogs. I want to thank you again for sticking with me through the ups and downs, and I hate that I wasn't able to bring a ship to you, but there's always next year. I mean, as a Washington Red Potatoes fan, there's always next year. But in any case, again, thank you so much for sticking with me. This is Jay Cake, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.